you can tell we're all, just not right because Chris started sexually harassing you before I could start this morning, and I apologize. That's my job.
Bob looks really good today.
I'm just a big slab of meat here, wearing a shirt that's one size too small. Apparently.
Yeah. Listen, I'm just gonna block him and knock him out of the way and say, when I did date guys, I liked really big guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I had a 6'5" boyfriend. Just saying.
Was that the one in the parking?
He's more my type than your type, so back off.
Was that the one in the
He
parking?
might be your husband. He's my man.
Was that the one in the parking lot of KBC?
No.
Okay.
It's a different one.
Okay.
He was also large.
I know that.
I have no idea what to say.
I don't know what's happening.
I'm just basking in it. Yeah. If someone as insecure as me, I'm just like, okay, keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Are you kidding? A 6'4" biker in spandex. I mean, it is like my perfect man. Made in a laboratory. Bob, I don't know if you heard me saying, no, I just is speaking about Eric for a minute because we're both cyclists, and so this hit us particularly hard, just the whole, all of it, and, but I really did. I had a vision of you and I riding with Eric and just, me saying, I wish we could have kept him safe. I wish we could have, because I was saying I ride with a group, and that's what, it reminds me of. We all look out for each other and try to stay safe. We always, right? Like rolling if you're going through a light, or stopping if we're all stopping, or, close the gap, or there's a hole down there, there's a pothole, or there's debris, or, like people. And I feel like that's what we, the Steph heads have to do now. People are trying to fill the void, this giant void that Eric left. But it is all about having each other's backs too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was about this time of year that I was hit by a car while bike riding. It was beginning of May. Beginning of May, in fact. And one of the crushing things about it, and this, of course, is not to diminish in any way what happened to Eric, but I mean, one of the crushing things about not being able to bike ride anymore, or having an accident like that and being killed, is the anticipation leading up to the bike ride is, oh my God, it's springtime. The weather is beautiful. Yeah. What a great time to get out on a bicycle and experience nature up close at human speed and be out in it. And then suddenly to have that cut short, either by an injury accident or, what happened to Eric. It's just, there's so many different layers to this, certainly, well, and from a personal level to a spiritual level.
And I was saying some other biker friends, were like, this hits everybody hard, in the biking community when this happens. But I was talking about, I thought it was only a thing that happened to me. And then I realized the whole team does it. When someone falls behind, speaking of hot, I got like a 6'5" hand in my back, making me physically pushing me back into the pack, but that's what we gotta, but it really is a physical manifestation of what we're trying to do for each other now. Like Eric did for us, lift us up. To help us lift us up and get us through this whole
exactly.
Because you were saying what a rough couple of weeks. I mean, all of this New York subway shooting, Ukraine, like all the images we're seeing. Eric, it has been a crappy couple weeks, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and there's a phenomenon in bike riding. I think it's in auto racing as well, where you can draft behind someone, and it makes it that much easier to go if they're braking. Sorry for the terminology here, but they're breaking the wind for you. So you're behind them, and then you don't have to ride out in the wind. And that's that's a huge improvement.
That's the only reason I want you to move here is just because you're 6'4" and it's like riding behind a UPS truck. I just want you for drafting purposes.
That's what I'm good for. Except I'm going way too slow for that.
No. But we were, the subway thing, it gets so exhausting for people like you and I that have to talk about gun stuff all the time. And it's just another day, I mean, it's just another day in America. And someone like Chris, you were saying, it's of course because it was in the media center that we're hearing so much coverage. I think someone did mention last night, it happened a bunch of cities all over the U.S. yesterday.
Last night there was a shooting at the Victor Valley Mall in Victorville. Yeah. A kid was injured. And, of course it's not being talked about because it's not in the media center.
Yeah.
Well, it's appropriate that this week Joe Biden also signed this executive order to expand the definition of what is a firearm to include ghost guns.
Yeah.
So he's going after this phenomenon. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's absolutely a no-brainer that you can go on the internet and circumvent all the gun laws, all of the restrictions on who can buy a firearm and who can't buy a firearm. And you can get all the parts and assemble all the parts in your home, and you can have a completely untraceable firearm. I mean, I can't even imagine the number of weapons that are out there proliferating without any traceable evidence to them whatsoever. So who's getting these firearms? And of course, you tune into Fox News Channel, and they're screaming, "Oh, why doesn't Joe Biden go after the criminals instead of just the guns? What are we supposed to do? Go after the criminals before they commit a crime? Are we in majority report territory here, or minority report?"
Yeah,
getting my movies mixed up with my Sam Cedar podcast. And so we're arresting people before they commit a crime, but with firearms, we know that these things are designed specifically to people, and that's their intrinsic nature. That's what common sense regulations of these things. And it would also make further sense that we wouldn't want untraceable firearms floating around the internet in perpetuity, that maybe it's time to cut back on that. And I guess the silver lining is Joe Biden's going after the ghost guns now. So there's that.
Yeah. Can I just say, you were, I give you mad props for the amount of bollarding you did on Twitter this week. We are all bollarding as fast as we can. But, Bill Hemmer tweeted 8.5% inflation rate year over year, hitting a 40-year high. And you said the last time was 1982, more than a year into Reagan's presidency, just so we're clear on the history. Also, Wall Street believes inflation will recede now. I mean, a lot of people making this point that Eric just made in his last piece, that, all of the media attention is on whatever's negative and not the historically good economic numbers. And as you implied here, there's a story. Where's my story about that's what experts believe, is that inflation is going to come down, and then they'll switch to something else that's negative for Biden, right? And Democrats.
Oh yeah. Constantly moving the goalposts. We see that all the time, and you expect that coming from the Republicans. You don't expect that coming from the traditional press. Certainly not the print press. You maybe get some of that on the Sunday shows or some of the cable shows, but that's what's causing a lot of our problems right now, because people are hearing their misinformed biases reinforced by television news. And that's creating this feedback loop that, of course, builds up this energy that, well, we got to find someone to punish. And in the case of gas prices, for example, people know, or the gas companies know, that people will blame Joe Biden. And so therefore they can artificially inflate the price of gas.
Yeah.
And that's the little trick that everyone is waging in concert with each other. It's kind of really disturbing given the stakes.
Yeah, I wanted to just play you the president yesterday on this. On
saw today's inflation data. 70% of the increase in prices in March came from Putin's price hike in gasoline. We need to address this challenge with an urgency that demands. That's why I've called on Congress to move immediately to lower the cost of families' utility bills, prescription drug bills, and more, while lowering the deficit to reduce inflationary pressures. And that's what we've done. We lowered the deficit by $300 billion so far.
Yeah.
And it's expected. So, folks, we can do these things without raising a penny in tax on anybody in this hall. In this giant barn.
First of all, have you seen that story anywhere in the media? Have you heard anyone cover the deficit?
No.
Right. Anything that's good for Biden, they don't cover. One last one, the president.
Family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide in half a world away.
Yeah. I mean, so this is what you were referring to, I think, Bob. The monthly consumer price index report says while inflation continues to rise, some economists appear pleased, with one stating the report is slightly better than anticipated. Gas price is a big part of the inflation rate. The current report is a rearview mirror look, though, given that gas prices are now coming down. So they add that some economists are hoping the peak of inflation has been reached. They also note the U.S. does not rely much on oil from Russia, so in other countries, inflation is worse. The New York Times tweeted, "We've also seen a big jump in food prices, which is, again, partly the result of the war in Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine are both major global food producers." The headline inflation accelerated in March, but we all knew that would happen given gas prices. The bigger surprise is the slowdown in core inflation. And then just one last one from Justin Wolfers said, a lot of headlines today about inflation at a 40-year high. We have a nice test of whether the media is symmetrically interested in good news, because in the next month or so, it's likely unemployment will hit a 50-year low. Will this attract as many breathless headlines? See, we're all bowlerting as fast as we can. But
yeah, exactly.
Right. But
and by the way, 40 years ago, calculate 40 years ago, Ronald Reagan was president 40 years ago. We just got to make that absolutely clear. And we're not talking about the malaise days of Carter, where certainly there were some indicators during the Carter administration, but it also occurred during the early days of the Reagan administration. The first couple of years were an economic, there was all kinds of economic turbulence that Reagan had to deal with. So let's be clear about parties on all of this. Yeah.
Yeah.